Hey everyone, Leo with the Dreaming Tree, and welcome to the assembly video for our jewelry / gift box. Now, obviously, we bundled this in with a Mother's Day bundle, but you guys are very creative, and I'm sure that we'll be seeing this used for a variety of occasions. So, without further ado, let's just jump right in here. I've done a few things off camera just to get, well, some of the repetitive things out of the way. So, you're going to have 4 pieces that look like this, okay? And you'll notice that on one side there's a letter B indicating that that is the bottom. Now what I've done is I've taken and I've pre-applied these panels just to save some time. Now one thing I do want to mention is that you'll notice that there's a center and there's a top and a bottom, but if you take and look at this, you'll notice that one of these is a little bit thicker than the other. Okay, so the top one is a little bit thicker. So you want to make sure you get the top ones in place on top and these towards the B or the bottom in this orientation. Now one other thing too, you can go ahead and pre-assemble this just like I did, but on one piece you want to leave off the top because we need to apply this piece and then put this piece on there because this is going to be our hinge, okay? So just keep that in mind. I'm going to put these 2 panels on real quick. So the bottom one and the center one are okay to apply, but leave the top one off, okay? And for the rest, for the other ones, the other 3, you can do all 3, the bottom, middle, and top, and that's fine. But leave one of the tops open for later. Okay, so let's get this in place. And again, you're going to repeat this process on all 4 of these. And I'm just doing some paper piecing stuff first, just to kind of get my feet wet. But I'm going to transition to putting together the base next, and then we'll put this guy together. So just put these off to the side for now. You're also going to have this little piece here. Has a little L on it, that is a liner. You're gonna have another piece, just a square that's slightly, just a smidge bigger, and that is the bottom. This is the liner, and then this is the little lip for the top where you're gonna obviously put your gift in. But let's move over to this piece here. Now, there are 2 pieces that look sort of similar, okay? You can see these 2 pieces, but if you look at this wall here, you'll notice that this one's a little bit thicker. Here, let me fold this down so you can see it. I think the light's hitting it kind of weird, but yeah, you can see the difference in thickness. Okay, the thicker one is going to be the lid for the top. This is the base for the bottom. Okay, so to put this together, what we're going to do is we're going to apply glue to, and actually I'm going to start over here where I have the large piece already connected. I'm going to fold it away from me so that it's easier to get my fingers in here and glue these together. So we're going to put glue on these little triangular tabs to start joining these sides together to form our base. Okay, so just make sure you get enough glue on that little triangular tab, tuck it behind the neighboring wall, line it up, and just press and hold that down for a moment. Okay, and I'm starting on this side here because there's a lot of weight connected to this little wall. And I want to make sure that I get that in place first. Okay, we can move over to the next little triangular tab and get our glue on this guy, like that. You can thin it out with your finger if you need to. And let's bring that in, line that up, and press and hold, and just continue holding that while it sets. Okay, give that a few seconds. And then we can move over to this side here, and I'm actually going to put glue on both of these remaining tabs. Actually, no, it doesn't, I don't need to. Never mind. So we'll tuck that in behind and get that lined up. Make sure it's nice and straight and press and hold. Okay, give that a few seconds, and you'll notice that maybe I'm going a little bit faster than you, and it could be because I'm using less glue. So always try to use the smallest amount of glue that you think is necessary. As long as you've got a nice thin layer on that tab, that's pretty much all you need. Okay, so press and hold that down. Okay, now you can take these tabs and fold them in. And we're going to put glue on all three of these tabs, and we're going to close this up. I'm going a little bit heavier on the glue here because I'm going to end up spreading this out to the very edge of each of these sections. Okay, so we'll take that glue and spread it out right out to the very edge. And that glue is already drying. So I'm going to reapply it. It's still tacky, but not dry enough. All right, so we're going to close this up. Focus on aligning this with this side. Get that nice and centered and aligned. And if you need to, nudge and just kind of push these walls in a little bit. That's okay, totally expected. And there we go. And just keep kind of running your fingers along the perimeter here, just to keep making sure that everything makes good contact. Okay, so far so good. Looks pretty darn good. Nice and seamless all the way around. Okay. Wonderful. All right, so there's our base. Not much to it. Just a nice little square, dimensional square. You can put this off to the side and we can begin building the main structure here. Okay, so we have those pieces here, obviously. And what I'm going to do is, and it really doesn't matter which one you use at this point, we're going to begin by gluing it to the center. I think that's a good place to start. So go ahead and apply your glue to one of the center tabs. I'm going to spread that glue out, make sure everything looks nice and seamless. And you can actually do this flat. So just line that up. So as far as placement of this next piece, I'm nudging it up against the score mark there. You don't want to go over it, and you don't want to be too far in front of it. You want to almost try to get it right in the center of that score mark. And then if we fold it over onto itself, you'll notice how these tabs, they all kind of line up and match perfectly. Okay, so like this tab here, it's sitting right on top of that other tab, and that tells me that I did a good job of getting this section lined up. Now I'm going to keep doing that actually. I'm going to make this one long continuous strip first. Okay, so get that glue, spread that out to the edge of the tab, grab the next piece, line it up. And another thing too, make sure, I don't think you can do it any other way honestly, but just make sure that the B is on the bottom. Okay, so I've got that in place. I'm going to fold it over onto itself, and while it's still kind of tacky, I can adjust it left or right if I need to, but I think I got it spot on. And the last one here. Let's get our glue on this tab. Spread that glue out. Grab our final piece. Pardon my head. Sometimes, I got a big head, it gets in the way sometimes, sorry about that. There we go. Whoops. All right, now I'm kind of rushing it. Let's try that one more time. I think I didn't get enough glue on there. Okay, get that lined up, nice and centered. Press that down. There we go. And you can fold it over on itself. Take a look at the tabs. Tabs match up nicely, so we are in good shape. Okay. So now that we got that going, we can go over here and we can start connecting these tabs together. Okay, so let's get some glue on this tab here. Very simple. It's kind of a large piece as far as the size of the compartment, but because it's angular like this, we only have 3 tabs for each section, so it should go pretty quick. Okay, so there's the first one. got that. Just make sure that you're getting it at the correct angle. Okay, you can technically put that down on your surface and press down. We won't have that luxury here in a minute, but that's okay. And I'll flip it over so I can have this tab facing me. And up on top, throw some glue on this tab. Get that glue out all the way to the very edge. Tuck that behind and line it up. And just press and hold for just a moment. Let it set. Here we go. Beautiful. All right, so you see where we're going here. Now we can move on to this tab here. And spread that glue out nicely. Grab this side, line it up, and hold it. Especially right here where it ends, you want to hold that. Sometimes that little area needs a little extra love. There we go. Okay, that is working out nicely. Now, put some glue on this tab. Spread that glue out to the very edge. Tuck it behind. Get it lined up. And press and hold. There we go. Okay, coming along here. A couple more to go. Okay, so now we're here. I'm going to put some glue on this tab. Spread that out all the way to the very edge of the little tab there. And then tuck that behind the neighbor, line it up, and press and squeeze. There we go. And then we can flip her over, get our glue on this tab. You get the idea here. It's just a repetitive thing at this point. Not doing anything significantly different. Same process, just in a different spot. Just putting together the main structure here. And it is coming together very nicely. There we go. Okay, so now I'm just going to close this up. And I'm going to begin by putting glue on the middle tab. Spread that glue out to the very edge of that tab. And we'll get that nice and lined up. Nice and centered. Come on, get up there. There we go. There we go, okay. And just hold that in place for a moment. Let it set. You can actually put that down on your surface and press down from the inside. Might make it easier. There we go. And finally, it just leaves those two tabs. Now, rather than yanking on it and undoing that middle one, you can grab a scrap piece of paper. I mean, you're more than welcome to pop. You could even do it from the inside. You can pull the tabs back like that and apply your glue this way. I'll do it this way once. I'll show you another little trick. Okay, so that glue is on there. And you can line it up that way and get it glued down. That's fine too. Now, doing it this way, I have a little bit less control over how much glue I'm actually putting on there. So I can't really get my finger in there to spread it out or whatnot, but that's okay, it still works. You might have to just wait an extra 10 seconds while it dries. Not a big deal. But if you want to grab a scrap piece of paper, throw a nice little chunk of glue on there, you can then just kind of stick it in there and paint the glue on that tab. That's also another option. Not a bad one. And then just line that up, and voila. Okay, so the main structure coming together, looking good. Now remember, we got the B down here, that's the bottom, this is the top, and this is where we're going to put this piece in just a moment to create a nice little lip. Okay. All right, so that looks great. We'll flip it over to the bottom, and that looks good. Now we're going to find these two squares. One has the L on it. Put that one to the side. We want the one that does not have the L on it. And we're going to put glue on one of these tabs with the letter B on it, B for bottom. And we're going to anchor the bottom to just one tab for now. And that's going to make life easier when we go to glue it to the remaining three. Okay, so go ahead and pop that on there. Just make sure you get it nice and centered, right up to the very edge. There we go. And just press that down into place. You can actually put that down on your surface and push down from the inside as well. That speeds things up usually. Let me make sure I stayed straight. It did. Wonderful. Okay, we can fold that out of the way now. Now we're going to put glue on the remaining three tabs. And we're going to close this up. Okay, it's okay to go a little bit heavier here with the glue because we're going to spread this glue out. And technically, I don't think really anyone's going to see this part of it because we're going to be gluing this down to our base. So this may be pretty well hidden, but if not, still want to do our best work. So we're going to close this up, focus on getting it aligned with the side opposite of the side that's already glued down. Get that nice and centered and aligned first, and then the rest of it, the other two sides, should just kind of fall into place, and they did. Now the cool part about this is that we can flip this over and push down from the inside. Get the rest of the surface area on those tabs to hold for us nicely. Okay, so now take a look at my work here on the base. It looks pretty good, and again, I don't think anyone's going to see this really, so I'm not really overly concerned about cleaning it up too much, because we're going to take this and we're gluing this to this structure here. Okay, so it's going to get glued down flat onto the bottom, because this is our bottom. Okay, so one thing we can do here is we're going to take our glue. And now because we're kind of joining two completely separate pieces, you'll notice that I'm really going heavy with the glue here, and that's okay, because I am going to spread this glue out to the very perimeter, and I want this to really hold nice, and it needs to be nice and seamless. Okay, so I'll take this piece, and it doesn't really matter, both sides look great, and pop it right on there. Make sure you get it nice and centered. There we go. Yeah, it looks good. Continue to apply that pressure so that it really grips it nicely. And I suppose we could flip it over, maybe put something inside to weigh it down. But I'm just going to be patient here and just apply continual pressure here all the way around until I'm sure that it's got a good hold. And so far it's looking really good. Okay, so that is looking pretty sharp. Now let's not forget that we have this little square with the little letter L on it. The little letter L. We got ourselves a tongue twister here. So just throw a little bit of glue. I would do it on the actual tabs, and then maybe just a little bit inside. Take this piece, pop it in there right onto the center. There we go, and that just kind of pretties it up a little bit, also makes it sturdier. Just run your finger along the perimeter, make sure that the very edge is making good contact all the way around. And now we need to put our little lip in place, and very similar to how we've been doing everything else, we're going to start off by anchoring it to just one of the tabs first. So let's do that. Let's throw some glue on just one tab, spread that glue out. Okay, and take our little lip, line it up nice and centered, right up to the very edge of that section. And you can kind of get your hand in there and like you're making a pie crust. Just press that down, just like that. Okay, now we can flip this out of the way for just a moment, and we'll get our glue on the remaining 3 tabs. Be careful not to get any glue on your beautiful pattern paper here. I'm going to spread that nice and thin with my finger here in a second, so don't worry about how thick the glue is. It's actually kind of helpful in this instance. I got a lot of glue on there. I'm going to have to get rid of some of that, I think. Where's my scrap? There it is. Just kind of dab that, get some glue in the corners there. Those seem to be the problem areas for me, is the corners. So go ahead and lift these up slightly. And go ahead and bring this down and focus on aligning the side opposite of the side that's already anchored. You see how that just kind of falls into place. Okay, there we go. And let's do the little pie crust motion all the way around. Make sure everything is nice and flush, sitting nice and flat. There we go. And that looks nice. Gives it a nice polished look so that it's nice and ready for our lid. And I'd say that looks pretty dang good. Okay, so now, let me take a look at that one more time. I've got some areas here that maybe need a little extra love. They're not sitting totally flat. Okay, so before we do anything else, we're going to assemble the lid here. Okay, so kind of like we did for the base, it's the same exact thing, but remember, it's just a tad thicker. Okay, so we're going to start by putting glue on the little triangular tabs here and dab those. Bring in the wall, line it up, and just press and hold. I think this glue makes me itchy, like makes my nose itch. I'm curious if anybody else starts to get kind of an itchy nose when they use the glue and maybe get it on their fingers and accidentally put it near their nose. Okay, all right, so next little tab here on the other side, that's kind of holding that little flap in place. I guess that's the downfall of using your fingers. I don't even know what's in that glue. It's probably horrible for you, huh? I don't know. Okay, so getting that nice and glued together. And then moving on to this side, we got 2 tabs remaining. Okay, let's throw some glue on this triangular tab. Dab that glue out to the very edge. Tuck it in and under. Whoops. Get that lined up. And press and hold. It just leaves one more, and we got to close it up, just like we did the first time. And I was actually going to put the little panel on top of this, but I stopped because I remembered that we're putting a little ribbon in there to use it as a way to actually open the lid up. I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. So last little tab, get some glue on there, tuck it behind, and press and hold. Now, this might be a good time to fire up your hot glue gun and get it ready, because we're going to be using it to create our rosette. That's going to come in handy. Rosettes are sometimes you just need a little extra. Well, you need something that dries a lot faster than this when you're working with rosettes. You could get away with using this glue when creating rosettes and gluing them down, but they tend to kind of have a mind of their own, and it helps to have a glue that sets quickly. And yeah, I need more glue there. Probably need more glue on this side too. Yeah, hot glue, as much as I dislike using it because it just gets all over the place, it has its uses, that's for sure. Okay, so we're going to close this up. Again, focus on getting it lined up with this side first. Get that nice and centered right out to the very edge. And then when you got that in place, if you need to kind of push these walls inward ever so slightly. Now's the time. And just press and hold that down. You can kind of run your finger along the seams here where that little lid and the walls all join, just to make sure everything's sitting nice and flush. And there we go. And just hold that in place for a few seconds. And that looks good. Take a look at your work, make sure nothing's out of place. You don't have any little sides that are sticking up or sticking out. And I think a good thing to do, remember which side is the side with the little flap. This is the side that was not the flap. This was the flap side. I'm gonna use that, wait a second, now which side was it? Yeah, this is the side with the flap. This is the side that had this section already built in that was holding all these walls together. I'm gonna have this going down. That's gonna be the bottom of my lid because I think that's gonna be flatter no matter what. If I happen to make a mistake constructing this side of it, I can always default to this side because I know that's gonna be flat. And looking at it right now, it's sitting very flat on my box, which is perfect. So, okay, so now, as I mentioned, this side here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna kind of glue this to the side of this structure that we have here. And this is gonna act as the hinge for the top. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put glue on this guy here. And we're gonna glue that to the side of our little lid. I don't think it shouldn't really matter which side. Just make sure you get it nice and centered. Okay. Nice and flush there on the sides as well as the top, just like that. Okay, there we go. Press and hold that for a few moments. Make sure it sets nicely. Okay. And then I'm going to take that and we're going to glue it like so. Right there. Let's take a look and see how nice and flat. Yep, beautiful. Sitting nice and flat for us. So go ahead and apply your glue to this little, we'll call it a tab. It's not an overlay. Go a little bit heavier there. Just put your lid down, make sure it's nice and centered, nice and flat. And press that tab into place all the way down at the bottom as well. Let's take a look and see how that's sitting. Beautiful. Yeah, very happy with that. Okay, so that's in place and that just leaves this little panel to make everything look uniform. We'll glue that into place. And that just leaves our rosette and our flower, which are, to me, kind of the fun part. But actually, you know what, this whole process has been fun, so as it always should be. If you're not having fun, then either A, you shouldn't be doing it, or B, you should continue to do it and get your skills up and your experience up, because typically if you don't like doing this, it's because something's not looking right or just, you know, doesn't look as good as you had hoped or whatever. But you know what, that comes with a little bit of time and a little bit of experience. Not a big deal at all. Okay, so there it is. That works beautifully. That looks great. And now, oh, you know what? There's one other thing that we need to do. We do have, got these little overlays, these little lacy elements. And let me see here. I believe there are some little score marks here on some of these. Yeah, so very tiny little score marks there on one side. Well, no, they're on two sides here. So one of them, actually two of them are going to have score marks on them. Two of them are not. They're very fine, small little score marks. You'll see that. This one has it, but these two do not. The ones with the score marks, go ahead and give those little score marks a pinch right at the folds. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these on first. Aside from the score marks, all of these are identical. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue these right here, like so. And we want to try to get those aligned with the white part as close as we can so that we don't get a gap there. Okay, you don't want a gap there. You want to bring it up as far as you can go. And we're just going to have to put glue on as many of these little areas as we can. Now this is a pretty delicate little thing, so match up your glue style with how delicate it is. Just go very easy with the glue. Don't cake it on. Nice and easy, and if you do accidentally get too much in one spot, just dab it off, wipe it off. And again, I'm going to start here. Get that nice and centered and up, right up against that white lip as close as you can come. Okay, there we go. Perfect. That's what we want it to look like. Okay, now one quick little tip here. Grab your scrap, throw a little bit of glue right on the very edge of it, and those little tabs that we have, just take and just put a little bit of glue right behind those, right on there, and then just push those up against the project. Okay, and the reason we have those there is so that when we take the other layers for the other sides and we put it over here, it will ensure that we don't have any or leave any gaps between this side and that side. It will all look nice and seamless for us. Okay, so we'll go on over to the other side, do the same thing there. Just throw a little bit of glue on a scrap piece of paper and just kind of tuck it right behind that little tab. Just give it just enough glue to help it stay in place. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing with the other piece that has little tabs, but it's going to go on the back or on the opposite side of where this one is, depending on where you started. Okay, so this is my other one with the tab, is it? Yep, there it is. Okay, so we're going to go on the back. Oh, someone's out there chopping up trees or something. I don't know if you can hear that chainsaw. I'm out in the country in my detached studio, so you hear some weird things out here. Coyotes and all kinds of stuff. Okay, so again, now I can't lift this up now because I'm on the back, but again, you still want to try to line that up so that none of the pattern is showing up above this strip. Get it nice and centered. There we go, just like that. Nice and centered, perfect. Okay, and then, again, just like we did before, just going to take a little bit of glue and just kind of hit the back of these little tabs with just a little tiny bit of glue and then push those down into place. Just be patient, give it a few seconds to let it set. Okay, and here we go. Other side, same thing. Just a little dollop of glue on there. And press that down and into place. And then we just have two more. We don't have to worry about the tabs on these last two, but the tabs, but these pieces are going to go on the corners there. They're going to cover the tabs. And that one looks good. Okay, so last two, pick a side, any side, doesn't matter at this point. It's all the same. These two pieces are identical, so it doesn't matter which side we put them on. Try to get glue on this entire thing here, all the way down to the very end. And you can kind of use that little tabbed area to help you with the initial alignment, and then just pop that into place. Just try to make sure that none of that pattern paper is showing above this white. I mentioned that a couple times, but just want to make sure that everyone's on the same page here. So this is the last little strip here. And again, just very delicate with the glue. It's a very delicate piece. You don't need a lot for it to stay in place. But there are some key little areas where you need to put at least some glue, especially here at the very end. Okay, and again, I'm kind of starting over here on one side and putting it on top of those little tabs that folded over to help with the initial alignment. And then the rest of it kind of will fall into place. If you need to nudge it up a little bit, that's okay too. As long as it's pretty close, no one's going to notice really. And there we have it. Okay, so that really adds a nice look, nice little accent. Okay. All right, so we are now ready for our rosettes. Okay, so again, these both start flat. Now on one of these, the edge, the very end, you want to start with a mountain fold. You can see how it's shaped like a mountain. And on the other one, whatever the other one is, it's just not this one, it's this one, we're going to start with a valley fold. We're going to make it a V. Okay, and then you can literally just go back and forth. Once you've got the first valley fold, you're just folding it back and forth onto itself. Okay, and it should go pretty quick. Should not be that hard, and you should also end with a valley fold. Okay, and the reason for that is because what we want to do is we're going to join these together on the end here. And if we had two mountains, then we'd join it there, and I can't explain why, but it just doesn't work as well. So now we can just throw a little bit of glue on one end of the piece that has the mountain folds on the end, and we're going to literally take the edge of the first valley fold, pop it right on there, and just glue those together. And I think what makes it easier is if you take like the first 4 layers. Oops. Well, let's make sure that these two are actually talking here and connected. I didn't do that. And then you can kind of take and just kind of start scrunching maybe the next 3 layers together and just hold that and squeeze it really good to get that to stick. Okay, so now we've got all that connected. And you may want to just kind of be patient here, because what we have to do now is take this whole thing and twist it around onto itself to create the rosette. And if that section that we just glued together isn't completely set, it may come apart. So you may want to just practice some patience here. Okay, I'm gonna just go ahead and see if it'll work. Before I do though, let's put some glue right here on this last little section of our valley fold, and we'll twist it around, and we just need to glue it to the other side. And don't worry about it, we can do it this way. It may look weird right now, but we'll pop it back into place. So we're just going to do that just like we did last time. I'm just going to take and just kind of bunch together a bunch of these while this sets. Okay, so we just kind of did this, connected them like this, and that's okay, because look what happens. Because then you can, I don't know if that's set yet, but I just want to do this anyway. You take it and you kind of flatten it out, and there's your rosette. Okay, so now to kind of keep this in place, this is where your hot glue gun is going to come into play. Okay, we've got this thing here. We're going to put glue on this whole thing and pop it on here to kind of hold it. And that's okay if it pops out like that. Now, one thing we're going to do with these leaves first is we're going to grab a dowel. Now we want to pinch these to give them a little bit of dimension. And then you can take a little dowel and curl the very sides of it so they're not so flat. Okay, so you can see there from that angle, maybe not. Hold on. There we go. You can kind of see that. As opposed to that just being flat, that is pinched and kind of rounded on the sides. So it's optional. You don't have to do it. But just kind of sharing a little tip to make things a little more interesting. After all, leaves out in nature aren't just boring old flat out there. There's a lot going on. They have to deal with a lot. Winds and rains and hail and all sorts of stuff. Little critters walking all over them. Okay, so that's kind of what that should look like. And as I mentioned, this is going to go on top of the rosette. You want your pattern up, obviously. Okay, and we're going to kind of try to keep it squeezed together as we put this on there. Now, another thing that we could do is flip this over so that we can actually see what we're doing. Now, here's another little tip. Grab a little marker. When all said and done, the leaf is actually going to be on top of the rosette, right? So let's pretend that we're doing it like this. We're flipping everything over, okay? So technically, there's a little hole here in the center of the rosette. So what might be helpful is to kind of find the center point. You've got little lines here for the score marks. Find the center point of this guy here. Just do a little dot, okay? Because then when we take the rosette and we pop it on here, you can actually see the little dot there, so we know that we have it centered. Okay, I'm gonna try that. I don't think I've ever done it that way before, but it makes sense. So let's get some hot glue on here. We don't need a lot. Just kind of swirl it a little bit. There we go. I can still see that little dot. I'm gonna get an eagle eye shot of this. Oh, well, that was almost not good. Okay. Told you these were fun. I think maybe if I hold it like that might work better. Where is my, there it is, I see it, I see it, I see it, bam. And while that glue is still kind of setting, make sure you kind of squeeze this all together as far as it'll go in the center there, and just hold that in place for a few moments while that hot glue takes hold. And usually by now it's ready to go, and that looks pretty centered, I'd say. Okay. All right, so I actually missed a step, and you need to pretend that this panel is not there. I recut it. Luckily, you can fix things if you mess them up. Not always, but in this case, I'm just going to take this panel, which I recut, and I'm putting it here because we need to create a little loop using ribbon to help us open this in a more elegant fashion. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut a little bit of ribbon, and I'm actually going to, you can hot glue it if you want. I think hot glue may kind of make it lumpy, so I'm just going to use some Scotch tape to hold it in place, get it nice and flat. So I've got about, let's see, 1, 2, 3, about 4.5 inches of ribbon, just a nice thin ribbon that we're going to take and just kind of create this little loop and put it right here, just enough to get your finger in there and to open it up. And then of course we need to make sure that it goes far enough in, well, beyond where this little panel is. So I kind of lucked out because I actually have a guide to help me with the placement, but essentially that is what you need right there. Just make sure you can get a finger in there, and again, make sure it's centered. So a good way to do that, the little doily overlay here, that's the middle there. So if you kind of just get it in place and line it up with that, that will ensure that you have it pretty much centered. So I'm just using some Scotch tape to hold it in place, and then I'll just glue over it, and you can see how that's going to work. Okay, you can use Scotch tape too, that's fine. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference, and I'd say that that is pretty centered, looks good. So let's get this in place, and again, you are not going to have this panel on there. I goofed up, so I'm just putting another one over it. and that's okay too. No one's really gonna know. So let's get our glue on this little panel here. And let's get it in place. So in my case, I'm just putting it right over my existing one. You are going to make sure that it is nice and centered on the top of the box. Okay, and you may want to give this little area a little extra attention just to make sure that it sits nice and flat there. Okay, so we'll give that a few seconds to set. Okay, looking good. I don't want to yank on it just yet, but I'm gonna anyway. You can see how that's gonna work. So that's nice. And we've already created our rosette with our flower. Okay, so I want to center this on here, obviously, and we'll have the leaves coming off to the sides. And then all we have to do, all that's left, is to put our flower in place. So one of two ways of doing this. You can glue it. I'm going to use hot glue. So we're just going to put hot glue on the bottom of this guy. I think that will just stay and get on there quicker. Again, make sure you get it nice and centered and that the leaves are coming off on the corners. And there we go, just like that. We'll get that in place, and all that's left to do is create our beautiful flower. Now, once I'm all done, I've got some bling on a roll, which many of you probably already have in your arsenal, and I will put that all the way around the sides of the bottom as well as the lid to finish it off. But you can see how beautiful that is starting to look here. So let's take a look at our flower. Okay. And we've got the stamen, and then we have all these pieces. We're going to start with the largest piece, so find the largest and maybe just lay them out. Let's see if these are identical in size. They probably are. Not exactly, but that one looks a little bit bigger there and there. So you can see what we have going on there. And we're going to start with the largest flower. Grab your dowel, and what we're going to do is we're going to lift it up a little bit. Okay, so you can see I'm just kind of lifting it up slightly. The first layer is not going to come up that much, just very subtle. And then maybe grab a thinner dowel. And what we're going to do is we're going to take and curl the tips of the leaves down. Okay, just like that. And just grab them and curl them down wherever you can, just to give them a little bit of interest. We're just doing the very tips. Okay, just like that. Okay, you can see the beautiful shadows that we're creating here and the highlights, and that's really the objective here. So this is it is less than 1/4 of an inch in diameter, so find something about the same size. Just curl that down. Don't overdo it. You don't want it to look like it's bent. You just want to make it nice and subtle. Okay, so there's our first layer. Got that. Okay, so we're going to grab the second layer, and again, just going to lift it up a little bit, not a lot, and just basically just put the petal between your finger and the dowel and go 90 degrees, and then just run the dowel through like that. Very simple, not too much. Okay, same thing with this. We're just going to take the very tips and curl them down. Just try to be very gentle with this so that we get nice round curves and we don't see any creasing. Okay, we're just adding some interest to the petals here. Like that. And you could technically, on some of these, if you want, kind of curl them up towards you here and there. It's your flower, you can make it however you want. There we go. And I'm going to go up on this one Now actually when I inked this, I inked it with like 2 tones. So I went with a dark pink first. That's what you see coming in here. And then I hit the very edges with a little bit of a purple, just to kind of give it a kind of a, well, just a, how do you explain it? Just, it's like it's been sitting in the sun and just got a little, a little tinged at the end. Okay, so now we're gonna start laying these together. So we'll throw a little bit of glue. You'll notice that there's a little hole in the center, and that is just to help you with the alignment. And you want to offset these petals so that they're not right on top of each other. You want to rotate them a little bit so each little petal has and gets a little bit of the limelight here. And we can kind of pull this up just to create a little bit of separation. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so next one here, again, we're going to take and bring it up a little bit. Maybe a little bit more on this one than the last 3. Okay, we can always kind of bend it forward too. And for this guy here, again, same thing. On some of these, actually you can start bringing these up a little bit more. We're still going to train them downward in some spots, but I do want a little bit more of the curl going up, like so. Okay, so like this side, we can bring that down just a tad. But here, we're going to bring this up and curl it like so. And then this side, let's go down. This one, we're going to go up towards you. And then maybe just this guy, just a little bit there. And then let's go down on this one. And then maybe up here, just for the sake of balance. Like that. There we go. Okay. So let's get our glue in the center here. And again, we're going to offset this so they're not right on top of each other. We want to offset it, just rotate it a little bit. There we go. Okay, so you can see what's happening here, forming our beautiful flower. Okay, that looks really nice so far. Nice separation between the petals there. With the next set here, we're definitely going to bring these up a lot more. Okay, we can curve that in, so slide it through, and then you can kind of bend it in a little bit as well, right at the base. Okay, and with these, I'm going to take just the tips, and I'm going to fold them away like that. So the base of it is coming up, but the tips are kind of drooping a little bit, just like that. Okay, so let's stack this one in place. Almost done here, guys. All right, and again, we're going to offset it. Make sure you line it up with the little hole in the center. There we go. If it's off a tad, it's okay. You can take a look at a profile view of what that looks like. All that little curling and just really makes it interesting and not so flat looking like a real flower. All right, so we've got 2 left. Again, this one, we really want to get a nice pronounced curve. You might want to use a smaller dowel now for the initial training, and that really makes it stand up. Okay, and we're going to take the petals here, the tips, and just fold the tips down a little bit. And if you want, you can kind of bring one of them in just to change it up a bit. There we go. Okay, so let's get that one stacked. Again, make sure you offset. Find that center. Where are you? There we go. Look at that. It is looking sharp. Okay, and the last one is going to be a little bit different. We really need to cup the last one here. I'm going to start by using a very thin dowel to bring it up, and then we're going to kind of take and overlap the petals, because if you remember, everyone's seen roses, and I'm also going to take this dowel and kind of cup the petal around the dowel like that. Okay, you see how it's kind of kind of cupped there. I don't know if that's in focus or not. There you go, you can see that, how it's kind of cupped. Okay, so I'm going to take and put my dowel in there and just kind of wrap it around the dowel lengthwise. There we go. And this is where a hot glue gun is going to come in handy, because what we need to do is we want to kind of cup it. You've seen how roses, the buds kind of start. So we want to kind of create that shape. And we need to find the points of contact where we can add our glue so that it maintains that shape. And it's roughly going to be on the sides here where this petal kind of touches this petal. So you might want to just put a little bit of glue, and this is again where the hot glue is going to come in handy. So I'm just going to take a tiny little dot of hot glue and pop it right on the very edge of this petal. Okay, and again, just kind of visualize the cupped nature of this petal here. Okay, so you see how those two are kind of overlapped, and then what we can do to emphasize separation here is we can take the little tip of this and fold it in a little bit. Okay, so you can see the separation there, and that looks pretty good. I hit it pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to take this and I'm going to kind of curl that in a little bit so that we can again emphasize the separation between those petals, even though they're kind of all together. So we'll see here where this petal is going to touch this petal. And again, I'm going to take and just put a little bit of glue right on the very edge of this. You don't need a lot because we're using hot glue, and it's going to stick real quick. And we also don't want to blemish it with too much glue. So there we go, just like that. You can see how nice that looks. And then, let's see how much tighter do we need to make this. I think that's looking pretty good here. Okay, so next, I'm going to work my way over. That one's going to come in. I'm going to take the side of this one and curl that in. Okay, this guy's going to go in there. So we need a little bit of glue here. Just a tiny little bit. Get out of there. Okay, and just kind of adhere that to the back of that one. There we go. And we may not even need to glue the last one because it's kind of being sandwiched by the rest of them here. And there you have it. There's our little center. Beautiful. That came out perfect. Okay, so throw a little bit of glue here in the center. Get that guy nice and centered. Now this might help to actually do some hot glue on this last one because it is kind of just floating in space there. It's not as flat. We got a smaller surface area to work with. So I'm just going to use some hot glue. Press that down into place. And there we have it. There she is. Beautiful. And that just leaves our little stamen. So now, the thing with this stamen is I've got a white side and a gold side. Now, you would think that the best thing to do, let me find a little skewer here. I need something real thin to wrap this around initially. Logically, you would think to wrap it around this way, but when we flare out each of these little stamens, it actually makes more sense to wrap it around so that the white side is on the outside. So what I'm going to do is take a dowel and literally just start wrapping it around the dowel. Now I should be using something a little thinner, but once I actually get it wrapped around, I can then just let it go and then just do it manually, nice and tight. Okay, so you literally want it to just kind of wrap around itself with no gap in the center. Okay, so I'm just going to do that real quick, is just wrap it around itself. Okay, and then you'll see what I mean here because I'm using gold foil. Now that doesn't look great because it's all white, but the idea is to then take these and flare them out. And this is where the white becomes exposed, where if I did it the other way, we'd end up with a white center. Okay, so we just want to flare these out now. There we go. Now another thing too, to close this up, we need to put a little bit of glue on the very tip of that, the very end of this guy, and then close it up so it stays put on itself. Okay, and I'll flare these out again here in just a moment. Okay, so we have our stamen all done here. If you want, if you are also using a gold foil, you can always take a little bit of gold ink and just kind of hit it around the edges. But you know what, honestly, I think that a little bit of white in there actually looks nice. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab some tweezers and just throw a little bit of hot glue on the bottom of my little stamen here. And we'll just drop it right in there. Nice. That's it. So last little step here is to just fix that a little bit. There we go. Last little step here is to just glue this down onto the center. And I think we could just do that with some regular old glue. And just make sure you get it nice and centered. Well, you know what? Since I'm going hard with the hot glue here, might as well just wrap it up with the hot glue. That works too. Okay, and nice and centered, making good contact. I think I got a little bit too crazy with this center guy here, and I need to reapply my hot glue. I was jiggling it around too much before it was set, and that's okay too. That should sit nicely, and there it is. Beautiful. All right, so that pretty much, you can take a look at it from this angle, completes the project. Looks wonderful, beautiful actually, very elegant, and that's it. So as I mentioned, I've got some gold pearls that I will put just on the corners here, and then also I've got my bling on a roll, which I mentioned I'm going to put along the edge of the actual lid as well as the bottom, and that will complete this project. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please take a moment and visit our YouTube channel and hit that subscribe button. And while you're there, hit the little bell so that you get notifications anytime we release a new project, whether it be paid or free. And if you make this or anything from our new bundle, I would love to see it, and so would the rest of our community. So head over to your Facebook and do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, or you can type in this little URL and it'll take you right there. So happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. I hope you enjoyed hanging out with me, and as always, I look forward to crafting with you again.